So, what's the age-old saying? Something about don't work with kids and animals, right? Oh, and don't do period pieces that require visual effects and costumes and production design of things that don't exist and lots of smoke machines, right? So, of course, we're going to do that. Hopefully. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes it's movie development blog, or vlog, or, well, whatever it is, it's always rough around the edges, right? At least we're consistent about one thing. And we thank our patrons for, well, what really boils down to spiritual support. Here's to you, my friends. It's much appreciated. Originally, I had actually planned to shoot some vlog footage for this video. I mean, I put my camera and mic in the car, and then I never took them out of the car. Basically, there's only so much energy in my personal batteries, and, well, yeah, I apply it the best I can, I swear. And, you know, it's just how things go sometimes. So in my little announcement video for this project, I showed you a little animated reveal video thing, and I believe I mentioned in that video how I put that together to be a storyboard of sorts for a genuine announcement teaser I want to do for the movie website. You know, like a proper thing. So I wanted to sort of recreate the cover of the main rulebook in live action. That was kind of the driving sentiment behind the thing. I mean, just the idea of going out there and shooting something practically and, you know, in live action is going to start to give us some of the exercises we need to do to sort of start to feel out how stuff should look and feel for the movie, right? I mean, I got to start experimenting with ideas and basically need little micro projects to do that with. It's just how I work. So, you know, hence this channel. So I was talking with my friend Jordi Ruiz Masso. He's a Catalan cinematographer from Barcelona.
You killed my father. Prepare to die.
And I was telling him about this shot I want to recreate and how we got to find a location to shoot it in. And his girlfriend sent us a pic she'd taken while on a hike down in Mission Valley, which is kind of like halfway between LA and San Diego. And the pic she sent us was pretty cool. It looked like a neat spot that could fit the feel of what we're looking for. So I was like, well, we have a day off from our studio shoots, you know, last week, so let's go check it out. Because when you're going to make a movie, you got to go location scouting. You got to go see areas so you can make an informed decision on where to shoot something, right? So it turns out that the location that she went to and took the picture at is on a hiking trail called the Holy Gym Trail. And no, I don't know why it's called that. And yes, I'm as curious as you are about why it's called that. The Holy Gym Trail. I have no idea. Anyway, so I left my place around 9:30 a.m. to pick him up near the Disneyland area where he lives, and we headed south into Orange County, California, and tried to find that trail. And it turns out there's actually a dirt road that heads off from a neighborhood street that supposedly leads right up to the trailhead, but after we'd driven down a mile or so of dirt road, we ran into this. And of course, right? I mean, why wouldn't the road be closed? Because, you know, we're making a movie, and that's exactly how things work when you try to make something. It doesn't matter if it's a movie, whatever your creative project is, the universe is just going to mess with you. You got to just expect it. So, stuck at this dead end, I was like, well, we're out here. There are other trailheads I noticed on the map, so I figured we should go look at those just to see what was available in this area. So, we turned around and headed back down the road, and just before we got back to the paved road, we came across this tree, and we were both like, hey, that's a cool looking dead tree. Let's check it out. Because, you know, we're trying to find something that evokes at least the border edges of the shadow deep, right? So, you know, dead trees is a, you know, step in the right direction maybe. Now, most of the pics I'm showing you today are, you know, they were taken in the middle of the day with the sun out and a blue sky, etc. But, you know, we're looking at things while imagining shooting the actual shot at dusk. And we're going to either replace the sky digitally or preferably frame out the sky if possible. A blue sky is obviously not going to work for the aesthetic purposes of the shot. Anyway, everything about making a movie is imagining something and then making the real world somehow service that imagined thing that you have. So this dead tree, as I said, has a cool vibe. So that's kind of what I mean about looking for a feeling or a way to create a feeling. But anyway, we took a couple of pics. It's a whatever location. I mean, there's you know, there's houses out there and power lines and, you know, too much sky, essentially. We kind of found a little dirt walkway that went down a little hill that was near that tree, so we took, you know, turned around, took a picture of that. We looked up some other trailheads, and we found this one on the map called the Bellevue Trailhead, and it's another spot in another residential neighborhood out there in Mission Valley. So we cruised up there and found it, and we could tell right away that it was not going to be the spot. These are Google images of that area, and yep, there's like no trees, which is just not at all what we're looking for. And the first like 300 feet of this Bellevue trailhead is like a 40-degree incline, and I was just dying hiking up this thing. I was literally having flashbacks to basic training. I dislike hiking. Yeah, that's probably why I don't do well on the dating apps. Sure, that's why. All right, so at this point, it's like 1 in the afternoon, and it's been a total wash, and I was like, well, we're pretty close to the Ortega Highway, and that's where I shot a bunch of my freelancer series. It's just a 2-lane highway that crosses over the mountains and lands in Lake Elsinore, and there are campgrounds up there and national forests. I mean, it's still dry desert, Southern California terrain, but at least there are trees up there. So we head up that highway, and we're just looking for places off the side of the road, etc. And then I just ended up taking us right to where I'd filmed before. And this is initially what we found, this kind of interesting bent over tree. I was like, oh, maybe we could shoot our ranger framed under this tree arch. That might be cool. So these images are taken with Jordy's cinematographer's app on his phone, which gives us the ability to kind of mimic different focal lengths, stuff like that. But bear in mind, it doesn't recreate what an actual, say, 40mm lens is going to look like, and it's never going to show us what a shallow depth of field looks like. Again, this is all just location scouting stuff. We're just seeing if someplace might work and see what ideas hit us. And of course, since it's just Jordy and me, I'm standing in for the ranger so he can frame up a shot. So you're going to see me in all these photos, because I'm the star, remember? Let's not forget that. Anyway, the crazy bent over tree, it's an interesting tree, but everything else around it is not super cool. So we just started roaming around the area, looking for little things, and we found this super cool, like kind of deep little ravine, like this trench in the ground. And I mean, it's like a good 6 feet deep. We took a couple of shots in the first part, and then Jordy had an idea. And this is how the creative process starts to spit out cool things, through random exploration. So he's like, hey, why don't you go across to the other side and I get a super low angle shot and we'll see what it looks like. So I go over there, and we like this big tree being in the shot, and you can't see it in these frames, but the tree's roots are all exposed going down into the ravine thing. But we really like the up angle, actually. And so the up angle is now a guiding point for this shot. So we get a bunch of shots of this just experimenting. I really like the really extreme shot that's almost looking straight up. It starts to feel very disorienting, right? So then we back the camera up and we get some wider shots with more foreground stuff, because I like all the roots and branchy kind of stuff. And that starts to have the kind of feel that we want, this haunted forest kind of thing. Yes, the blue sky is a problem, but, we'll deal with that. So you'll notice that I'm looking at the camera now, facing the camera, and the cover of the book is obviously a shot of the back of a cloaked ranger, which was my initial intention. But when I was standing up there on the edge of the ravine, it just felt like I should be facing the camera. It feels weird to stand on the edge of a drop-off and like not be facing it. So the design for the shot started to change in my head. So now our ranger is going to be looking at the camera, which actually introduces a whole new slew of problems that facing away in a silhouette would have made much easier. Like now, if I have them face the camera, it can't be a true silhouette. We'll have to see some detail in the figure, stuff like that, which is, now we need like full wardrobe. It's just, everything cascades, right? Everything has a certain, everything triggers something else. So, and another thing I want to point out is a second realization I came to basically towards the end of the day, like when the day was almost over. I realized that it needs to be 2 figures in this shot and not 1. 2 rangers. And the whole idea for the whole teaser thing is developed a little bit more, but we'll get into that later. So now when you see these images, you can do like we do and imagine 2 silhouettes, 2 figures in cloaks instead of 1. I mean, it's rangers, plural, right? Anyway, we took a few more shots of a different tree just because it was there. And then I was like, this ravine is super cool. Let's see what it might look like if the rangers were in the ravine. And it is pretty cool, but I don't think we'll actually end up shooting that. It's too close quarters for the teaser, and it just doesn't feel right for what I'm looking for. Now it's about 2:30 p.m. and I keep thinking I want to see some more locations, but again, trying to find forest in this area is tricky. But I do know of another place also that I've shot in before, and I asked Jordy if he wanted to go check out Idlewild, which is pretty far away, probably like 70 more miles. And he's like, sure, let's do it. So we jump back in the car and head off into Southern California rush hour traffic, and it takes us 2.5 hours to get to Idlewild. But we have a few hours of sunlight left, and Idlewild is like a little touristy sort of mountain town, and the forest up there is much more pine tree type forest. And there are bigger rocks and streams and stuff like that. I remember shooting part of a movie in this one area that's a few miles outside the town limits. And so we go looking for that. And I pulled off the road at an area that looked like the place I'd been to before, like over a decade ago. And we went down into the woods to check it out. And that's what this place looks like. So you can see it looks pretty different from the Ortega Highway location. It's just a different kind of forest. So we shot a couple of test shots. These aren't right. This is like happy camping forest in this shot, but there's this stream, and I asked Jordy to try getting some running water into the frame just to see what it looked like. Running water is like great production value on screen, so we messed around with that a bit, but the stream is pretty small, and it's probably just not right. It's a nice spot, but just again not exactly right. I spotted a bigger pool, and I was like, dude, they could stand in the water. That would be awesome. But again, it's a tight spot, and the background is too close to camera, and it's like it would be cool for a different kind of shot, but not exactly what we're looking for, this iconic, ranger silhouette shot. We found this huge rock, but there's too much sky, and the rock is too round. Again, we're just experimenting, just checking stuff out. Like a cool shot could be found here, but not for this particular thing, maybe. So then we ran down the road a little further and found another spot, the actual spot I remembered from that movie I shot a long time ago. And here the stream is much bigger, but it's also an endangered frog habitat, and we're not supposed to go closer than 10 feet to the water. So that kind of puts a kibosh on the stream as a location. So this area here, this junction between these rocks, this is pretty cool. And it's definitely further than 10 feet away from the actual stream where the signs are for the frogs. But this little saddle is pretty precarious to stand in there. What you can't see is that there's a big drop off in front of me and behind me. And that tree right in the middle kind of kills the whole shot. I don't know. The other thing we were looking at is how the background interacts with the subject. And if the background is too noisy, like too crunchy with small detail, like tiny leaves and stuff and thin branches, that can, like if there's a lot of them, that can make the shot kind of less effective. Of course, with a shallower depth of field, that can solve some of that issue. But again, depending on the focal length of the lens, I don't know. It could be right. It might not be. I don't know. Now, for some reason, I feel like this shot is pretty cool. And it's literally got that crunchy background I was just saying doesn't work. But with this big tree on the left, maybe that's weird, but there's something about the ground foliage and the terrain in this particular frame that for whatever reason makes me think this could be cool. But this was also before I hit upon the notion of putting two figures in the shot, and this spot I'm standing in is like the only spot a person could stand in this particular area. So a second figure wouldn't fit in this shot because there's like literally nowhere for me to pose them. But yeah, all these fallen trees that are in this area are pretty great for the look, but we didn't find any of them exactly safe to stand on. So the other thing we're not really able to check out is how telephoto lenses would look. The app on the phone will crop into a simulated POV of a tighter lens, but there's a real difference between these wide angle phone lenses and telephoto lenses and how they compress the background and how they crop out the sides of a frame. So we'll probably have to do a second scout day with the actual camera and glass we want to use to see how it will really look. In fact, I mean, we're going to have to do that. There's just no way around it. So then we went driving around the town of Idlewild, mostly in some of the neighborhoods, which are all kind of very rustic and have these sort of cabin-like houses and, stuff like this in the yards. So, and there are very cool trails up in this area too. So at about an hour before sundown, we headed over to one of the main trailheads just to keep looking. I guess it's called the Ernie Maxwell Trail, is the one that we went on. There's a few trailheads there. So we walked down that trail for around 20 minutes or so, just looking at different areas, but there's nothing like super cool. I mean, there's nothing super cool for what we're trying to shoot. I mean, there's a lot of very pretty areas there, and the hike is probably really fun to do and awesome to look at. You know, this is literally like on the edge of a public trail, and there's just no way we're getting permission to shoot on this trail, and it would be full of hikers anyway. So this is just kind of I don't know, we're just kind of looking whatever we could see in the last hour of daylight. So then on the way back, right at the beginning of the trail, which is kind of on this ledge, like the top of a steep ravine. And then like down at the bottom of the ravine is like a stream that's running, and it's down in like a ravine. It's pretty cool. There's rocks and stuff down there. Again, there's just no way we'd get permission to shoot here, which is kind of a bummer because this area does look pretty rad. And we don't see the sky, and you have the running water, and you got these cool big rocks, and it's pretty neat. Like, it would actually make a cool shot, but again, maybe the background isn't far enough away for what I'm trying to do. Again, it's hard to tell without having the real lens there so I can see what the depth of field looks like. Ultimately, if I could just go to like Louisiana for a day, shooting in swamps is probably more what I would actually like to do for this particular shot. I mean, swamps is more of a shadow deep thing, right? So even if we could get permission to shoot off this trail, which I'm 99.9% sure that the California Forestry Department will not allow that. So even if we could, though, there's a bunch of logistic issues to think about, which you have to keep in mind all the time when you're going out on location. Like, the slope to get down into this ravine is pretty freaking steep, and getting camera equipment and actors and costume and stuff like that is just, it's a real pain in the ass. And, you know, I don't know where the restrooms are or where the closest, you know, facilities, that kind of thing. So anyway, that was the end of the daylight, and it was time for dinner because we were starving. It is literally at this point 8 o'clock at night. And we started at 9:30. So we went to and we hadn't eaten. We stopped at a Starbucks in the middle. So we've been going all day, hiking around in the sun, driving. So we just wanted some beer and some food. So we went to the microbrewery restaurant in Idlewild, and we had ourselves a bratwurst. And Jordy's was vegan even. And we had truffle fries and a flight of beers. No, I don't look tired at all. It's, you know, at this point, 8:30, and we finally sat down to eat, and by the time I got home, it was midnight. Idlewild is pretty far away from where we live, and anyway, so yeah, I got home at midnight. So what started out as a half-day cruise up a local trail kind of thing turned out to be a 15-hour, probably 250-mile drive of a day. And I don't even know if we actually found the spot we want to shoot at. And that, my friends, is pretty standard filmmaking stuff. I want to thank Jordy for sending me all the pics that he took and doing half my job for me for this video, because I was too lazy to get my camera out, and I just couldn't. It was a lot. It's just a lot to do. So don't worry about what it takes to make something. Just sign up and roll with it. That's how stuff gets done. And every project is going to be a pain in the ass, no matter what. See ya. Why did I do that? That's a new one, huh? See ya.